counting college, and that's not counting club, and that's not counting the boys and girls. And normally we spread it out. So in the fall is high school girls and college. In the winter is the boys and the men's college play. And then in the spring, we have a little bit of high school volleyball, but not much. And then we have all the clubs. So it's our big club season in the summer. But now everybody is playing in the spring. All the leagues are playing in the spring. So we have no idea how we're going to get all the referees for these games coming up in January, February, and March. So, yeah, it's a wild time for America. Besides the election that you're all aware of coming up in November, that's a whole nother matter.
There's a big question mark. A big question mark there. Huh?
If you need more referees, I will come to USA.
Oh, you should. We will take referees. If you're willing to get on an airplane, you know, in Boston, this is true. In Boston, they have an event in Boston. It's called the Boston Qualifier, where they pay not probably enough to cover an international flight, but they pay around $350 extra. So they'll pay for $350 of a flight. So if you want to go on vacation, come to America. They'll pay you $350 to get here. It probably is going to, no question, cost you more. But you'll be paid maybe $600, $700, $800, $900 to referee for that weekend, and then you can come and see me in Colorado, and we can go and look at the mountains. So always welcome. And everybody's always welcome.
Okay, thank you.
That's with
that's a good idea, baby.
The international rules. This is with the international rules or the local.
Well, you know, it's the local rules, but remember, we accept everyone. So even Andrew Rob, remember Andrew when Andrew was a coach for us at a high performance event. He was one of our coaches. And I remember Andrew, you know, we tried to give him like, Andrew, these are the things the US does, not like, you know, because we have special rules, we call them. And of course, we're America. We got to, you know, we can't quite be doing what everybody else is doing. We're a bit rebellious. And poor Andrew was trying to tell one of the candidates, like, hey, man, you know, and that candidate says, we don't do that in America. And that was really funny. So, but they didn't care because we know. So even if you don't know all the rules, we have a little cheat sheet. Just, you know, write it on your hand like football, American football, write it on your hand and look, and everybody loves you. So no problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with this introduction, I'm very honored and happy to host this episode of Learning from the Top. Today we have the active top FIVB referee, Mrs. Pati Rolf. We will hear about her career, about her professional work, and some of her philosophy and views about refereeing and all around it. Thank you for joining us, Pati.
Yes, thank you for inviting me, Roy. So this program you have is so nice. It's, I say for many of us, it's so casual. I like the fact that it's relaxed. It's like we're all in everybody's living room, and it's very nice.
Yeah, it's nice to find, you know.
And soon we'll see Tom Blue's cat walk by. Tom Blue has a kitty cat that will come through, and I love it. And many of you don't know, but Tom Blue is one of my most loving and kind coaches that I had when I was younger, and pretty much the only reason I think I made it as far as I did is whenever I would call crying, or I couldn't remember. I still remember being in Brazil, and I was young, and Tom probably remembers. Besides the fact I was broke and young, two things. I would call him or email him and just hoping to God it got to him, and said, Tom, I cannot remember if the ball's outside the antenna and goes over the net. And Tom, you probably remember this one. You know, in America, the ball couldn't cross, you know, you couldn't run into the free zone and retrieve one of your ball and bring it back. Impossible in America. So, but I couldn't remember the rule, which one it was. So I go, Tom, I can't find it, please. And Tom would go, Pati, calm down, just relax, you know. But Tom was one of those, he's one of those, one thing I loved about Tom, and I know Tom, I apologize that you're here. And if you weren't here, we would be there's a question that Roy sent me about mentors. One thing about Tom that was exceptional and so important when we talk about, you know, supporting women, right? And supporting anyone, but particularly because our numbers are so poor in women, is we got to let women know just to relax, you know, and just to know that you're not going to be perfect, that you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and, you know, it's okay. And I think Tom was always so great at that. He really helped me to understand. I was a bit of I would use the word psychotic. That would be a good word for what I was when I was younger. I know, I really was psychotic. If you read my journal when I was younger, I wrote every night in my journal to calm myself down because I was jacked up when I was a kid. And Tom would always just say, Patty, just for God's sake, calm down. Just blow your whistle and you're going to figure it out. And I remember that really helped me through those difficult times I had, trying to just ref and not worry about what everybody thought of my refereeing. That was a big issue I had when I was younger.
So if you're talking about your young age, tell us, what's your first recollection, your first memory of volleyball in your life? How volleyball entered your life?
Well, you know, it's interesting because many of you may or may not be aware. Some of you follow me on Facebook, and maybe I'll show a picture of myself longboarding on a longboard, or maybe skiing, or maybe, you know, playing badminton. I love sports, and I love all kinds of sports. So I came to volleyball very late. I was probably 15 years old when I started volleyball in high school, 10th grade. And I was probably the best at basketball and what you would call baseball. Those were my two best sports. I played hockey with the boys. I played on a Babe Ruth baseball team. I was the first girl to play baseball in the state of Minnesota on a boys baseball team. It never occurred to me. My mother was amazing. I'd say, oh, I want to do that, and she'd sign me up. It didn't matter if boys were playing, girls were playing, if, you know, dogs were playing. If I wanted to do something, I remember one time I climbed a big tree. It was probably, I would say maybe, oh goodness, it was taller than a 2-story building. And I remember I climbed up to the top of the tree and I sat up there and I was watching everybody. And I remember my mother walked outside the house. We had many children, 6 children. And she looked up and she goes, what are you doing? She's yelling up, what are you doing up there? And I said, I'm watching everybody. And then she said, okay, when lunch is ready, I will call you. And she went back in the house and she said she was so scared. And I was, by the way, like 9 years old. And so my mother really encouraged this, being active. But in terms of volleyball, you know, volleyball, we didn't really have volleyball when I was little. It's expensive, right? To travel and do all these things, it was expensive. But I had, by pure luck, when volleyball started in America, the club scene. When club volleyball started, I had one of the best coaches in the country. Now he's one of the best coaches in the country, Glenn Litsky, started a club in Minnesota. And you know, if you can think about, you know, our states are like your countries, you know, some of our folks' countries. So in the state of Minnesota, 5 states drove to Minnesota. So Wisconsin, North and South Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota had one club called Minnesota Juniors. And I was lucky enough to be one of those 24 girls selected to play on this club because my high school coach, who wanted to win the high school state championship, put me on the club team that he coached. So girls would drive from like 5, 6, 7 hours away to practice on the weekend, and then we'd play in these big tournaments. And that's how it started. I got lucky. I tried out. My high school coach let me play. He ended up being the coach at Texas. He runs a big club called Austin Juniors. And there were a bunch of guys, 5 young men that coached this club, great coaches, and that's how I started. And that's kind of my first memory of playing with all these famous players, a lot of pro players. I would argue that I was probably the worst player out of those 24 girls, and I was definitely the littlest. But playing with the best players in the country and the best coach, that's what changed it. And so I started playing in 10th grade when I was 15, and then just grew from there. And the reffing, people ask me, well, how did you start reffing? Considering I was a player, a pro player, a college coach for 25 years. Well, on those club teams, we didn't have money back then to hire referees. You know, that was in the 80s when there was only a couple thousand children playing club volleyball. And so my coaches, who were men and young, they didn't want to ref, so they made us do it. So when they said, who wants to ref this game against these other teams, none of the girls raised their hand. And of course, I'm not dumb. I want to be wanted on the team. I know that if I don't play well, maybe they'll keep me because I ref for them. So I said, I'll ref. And so at 18, I started reffing as an 18-year-old girl in these clubs. And that's really how I started as a child. I started reffing as a small child.
Let me ask you, so you said you were a coach and you were a player. Any of this helped you in your career as a referee, moving from those positions? You think those are basic things that the referee or can help them to
It can be helpful. You know, we often say there's great basketball coaches. You know, if you look at some of the pro basketball or pro football coaches, some of those guys weren't famous players or great players. They liked the game. Some of them didn't even play sports, but they followed the game. So I don't think you have to be a player or a coach, but I do think it helps. And I do think it can help. I also think, as someone warned me once, don't let anybody know you're a coach when I started reffing internationally, because some people felt that was not good, that it would make me sympathize with the teams.
Mm-hmm.
But really what it did for me personally is it helped me understand what the teams needed and wanted. When a coach would look up at me or, be going, hey, what's going on? I would know almost immediately what they were wondering or questioning. When a girl was coming over to say, please, what are you doing? I would understand how she was feeling, because I remember feeling that way. So I just did a better job of being able to be empathetic and having sympathy, or I would use the word more. In America, we use the word empathy. Mm-hmm. Sympathy means, I'm sorry, Roy, but I really don't get what you're feeling. The word empathy means I actually know exactly what you're feeling. Because I've been there myself. So I think it helps with the empathy, and then it helps me to say, I'm so sorry, but I don't know how many times in my career now that I'm older, I've said to a player or a coach, but more players, I say, I'm so sorry, but we are going to do this. And at
Mm-hmm.
least it makes them realize that we're listening to them, right? I think a lot of players just want to be heard and then make a decision and be done. So I think it helped me understand the game better.
Yeah, one of the coaches that I interviewed said that it's very important for him to feel that the referees are listening to him, understanding him, not even accepting what he's protesting about or saying, but understanding and accepting that he has the right to protest or anything else. You are listening and you accept his protest, but then you make your own decision.
Well, and I would argue this is a great point happening in America. America has lost the ability to have a civil discussion, a civil discourse. You're seeing a breakdown, and I mean this in a funny way. You have to have a sense of humor if you live in America. You can't be too uptight. And so when I look at the political realm, trust me, I understand the serious consequences of what's happening in my country now. Very bad things are happening. Just the idea of immigrants and their children being locked up and children being separated from their parents is a horrifying thing to me, and it's not funny. But the reality is that we are unable now to have a civil discussion between two opposite sides. I should be able to talk to somebody on the other side that thinks other things and have a good discussion, and then we're going to agree to disagree, and then we move on. And that has to happen in coaching and reffing and with the players. We have to be able to listen to a player and know that we are the final deciders. That's really an important thing as well, like police officers. Police officers ultimately in America decide whether they're going to do what they're going to do. And as a citizen, I don't have a lot of power. I just have to hope that they listen to me. So, when you're a player or a coach, ultimately the referees make the final decision. And as referees, we have to understand that we do have to listen and we do have to respect what they're saying. And by the way, they may be actually telling you something that you want to know. That's important, right? And if you don't listen, you're going to miss something that, like, oh my goodness, you're right. I didn't realize this was happening, or I didn't realize that was going on. And they'll help you to make positive decisions and feel like you're respecting their point of view. And now some people say, well, they're playing games. Well, games are played every day. I mean, in America right now in politics, games are being played every day, but you still listen to decide for yourself what you're going to do. So I also don't like it when people say, hey, Patty, you were being played by that coach. I'm like, no, I was not being played. I was showing respect for his speaking. Now, if he's not going to respect me back and say things that he's, that are he's playing a game with me, that's his problem. That's not my problem, or that's her problem. That's not my problem. But I'm going to show the respect and listen, and then decide, no, this is not helpful, and move on with what we're doing, and listen to my second referee or my first referee or my challenge referee, and we're going to move forward. But it is always important, no matter who the person is. Let's say, for example, if you don't know how I'm voting this fall, you don't know me very well. So without getting political, if the person that I can't even speak his name, who's our president, comes and speaks to me about something, even though I don't want to listen, because I want you to know I've never watched a TV program or a news program with his face or his voice in almost 4 years. Cannot listen because it makes me crazy. So However, if that person called me and said, Patty, I want to speak to you about voting this fall. I want you to vote for me. I would listen. And then I would say, I'm so sorry, but I cannot vote for you. And then I would hang up. But I would at least respect and listen, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's important.
Understood. In the USA, instead of having regular leagues competitions, you have conferences where around 100 teams come together to play in many matches during one weekend.
Yes.
When you whistle these competitions, is there any change in the way you whistle and there's no tension because now you're a top referee, or do you take it seriously still and come there and?
Oh goodness, yes. You guys, it's sometimes more difficult to referee in these youth events because the parents and the players don't know how to behave. They're learning how to behave, particularly the parents and the new coaches. So you have to actually be at a higher level, in my opinion, in these games in terms of how you work with the teams. I mean, you have to realize I have parents maybe 5 feet behind me that may be yelling and saying things they're like, they might be yelling at the line judge who's 10 years old. I cannot allow that to happen. That does not happen at the pro level. I mean, at the international level, and at college, that's not tolerated. Yet now as a referee, I'm in charge to make sure my children who are reffing that game, my line judges and my scorers, are safe. So you have to pay attention to these parents. Some of our parents will walk right onto the court if they're upset enough and think that they can yell now. It's a new culture that we have. Parents actually think. I had one father from Wisconsin. He was a big man, a red shirt that said Wisconsin on it. He walked right up next to me on the floor. He went to the sideline and started yelling at my 14-year-old second referee. I literally looked down at him and I went, "Sir, what are you doing?" And he looked up at me and he goes, "She's horrible." And I'm not joking. It's embarrassing. And I turned to the parents of this team and I said, "Remove this man from the floor or I'll get somebody." So they called, I don't remember what his name was, like, "Hey, Bill, come on back here." And then I turned around and I got off the stand and I walked up to the parents and I had to, in a very professional way say, "We will not have this, or we will not continue playing." And that doesn't happen, at the international level unless something really crazy happens. But yes, you have to literally really be on your toes. I would argue that it's at times much more difficult to referee the club because there's just a different culture that we're working to get back now. We're working to get back a culture of civility within our our club playing. But right now we're struggling a little bit. So I keep the same level. And remember now, because we may do 6, 7, 8 matches in one day. So, and they're not 3 out of 5, everyone. They're 2 out of 3. So they only last about 1 hour. But you have 8 hours of reffing in one day. So if you get tired, you kind of start to lose your focus. So I would argue that these big tournaments really force you to stay focused, and you really have to kind of work on your being mindful and being in the moment.
Okay. Now, as you are a very experienced referee, do you have any obligations in the USA volleyball to prepare young generation? Do you have a special system that you use in the USA volleyball that can be useful to other countries?
Yes, we do. And, we are beginning that step. I have been the director of USA referees for only 2 years now, but it's been 2 long years. And what we're doing right now, we're actually just starting a recruiting campaign. And the title is, and I apologize for all the words, but these are important times in America, especially in officiating. I was fortunate just to be selected to the National Association of Sports Officials about a couple weeks ago. So it's called NASO, and it's our big sports officiating organization that has all sports: hockey, football, all the Major League Baseball, and also the NGBs like volleyball and fencing. And I was fortunate enough to be selected to the board of directors. And on that board of directors, our big discussion in America is we don't have enough sports officials in every sport. Enough at the higher level of sports, but even at the youth level, we have not enough officials because of the high school, which is gigantic in America. High school sports is so big, I can't even describe how big it is. You need almost 500,000 referees 500,000 referees to referee all the different sports that are being played in high school: water polo, fencing, volleyball, basketball. Oh my goodness, we have every sport you can have. Rifle, we have rifle. We have a sport called rifle. You shoot guns at targets. It's amazing. And colleges have these sports. So right now, because we don't have enough referees, we know that the population, for example, the population in America is about 50% women and 50% men. All right. And then with our Asian Americans, our African Americans, all these different cultures, there's large percentages of these populations in this country, yet they're not refereeing sports of any kind, which makes no sense, because it's a good part-time job for people that want to make extra money in America. I mean, you guys, I want you to think about club sports. Club sports in America, if I referee one weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in America, I can come home with almost $900. And that's a lot of money for somebody who's 20 years old. 18-year-olds can referee. So we're starting a diversity, equity, and inclusion program for our young people. It's for people ages 16 to about 30 is kind of what the age group we're targeting. It's particularly women and our minority groups that are not represented, even though they're a major population base for us. And we are starting a national campaign we have 40 regions, club volleyball regions. So we'll have like the Hoosier region, the Florida region, the Badger region, which is Wisconsin. And all these 40 regions are going to come together and work on a recruiting campaign for 18 to about 30-year-olds. And it's going to be a marketing campaign put on by USA Volleyball that's really going to target the high schools, the club volleyball. We have club volleyball in colleges. So besides having kind of the varsity team or our pro team at Wisconsin, Wisconsin also has a big club program where the kids that can't make the varsity team, they all play club. And they're 50 kids on this team. And all those girls and boys could be refereeing in the local clubs, making an insane amount of money, almost $25 an hour as a college kid or as a high school kid. So that's starting right now. And we will definitely come back, Roy, and let you know. The marketing plan campaign or plan just got put together a week ago. And we're putting together kind of the criteria, and I would be happy to show that to your people in about a month and a half to 2 months when it kind of kicks off the ground. Right now, we're doing video. We're taking a lot of video of young kids starting reffing. We're posting it on the region websites so that children, if I'm in a region and I say, hey, I want you to become a referee for us, they go to this location on the website where all this stuff is for the kids to look at regarding like how much money they can make. What kind of training are they required? And we're trying to keep the training really minimal. Not a lot of things that they have to do to get started. Very small things. No money to get started. In fact, we're going to give them equipment to start. And then some videos of friends that are refereeing so that their friends can say, hey, it's a blast. It's fun. I'm making really good money. You should do it too. So that's starting right now.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. It's a good thing for other countries to have you as the pioneers of such a system and such a working to try to work on a new generation, which is always in every country, the working on a new generation, trying to produce new referees becomes
Yes.
more and more difficult with the years and everything. And sometimes the top referees, they don't think about it even. They have their own problems. They are thinking about how to maintain a high level of the regular referees and everything. They don't
Right.
think about the new generation. This is a really problem worldwide. And to have the USA doing such a system with you inside, it's
And
really.
And it's important, like you said, Roy, it's important to have a mentor. I mean, if there was a person, I mean, Tom is a prime example. When I was refereeing as a young referee in international ball, I wouldn't email anyone else except for Tom, because I knew Tom would respect the fact that I was fairly forgetful and I couldn't keep all the rules straight. First of all, I was doing high school. I was in club. I was coaching college. And then I was reffing international and reffing NCAA too. Remember, I was coaching at Duluth, which was Division II. I was reffing Division I. So I had 4 different rule sets in my mind. And sometimes the international games, I didn't have many international games when I started, you know, and you don't get many tournaments. So I'd go to this tournament, and then all of a sudden when I'm up on the stand, all the rules would start to kind of start to come together. And I didn't dare write some of the other guys because I knew they'd go, oh, that Patty, she's not good enough. If she can't remember this, she's not good enough. I know Tom would never do that to me. I knew Tom knew that I eventually, and it took a long time, Tom, but that I would eventually become a pretty good ref. So we need mentors that we can trust. We need mentors as young people. We need someone who believes in us, even though we don't even believe in ourselves at times. And I would argue this, that Roy, you said it right. We have to have not only the high-level referees, but also any experienced referee start to take one referee, only one. Because you're right, it's not easy to referee, and we have a family, and we have jobs, and we have all these things that we're doing. But we need to take one person, and this is what we're doing. We're calling it the power of one. Take one referee, a young person, and mentor them. Well, actually, I wouldn't call it mentoring. Actually, be a friend to them. Because it's about being a friend. They need someone who's going to support them. And when they make a mistake, someone's going to say, hey, you're fine. You make mistakes. And I mean even dumb mistakes. 2 years ago at a high-performance event, and it's our biggest event, we made sure that this event had more young referees than it's ever had. Normally it had about 10. But we need 90 referees at this major high-performance event. It's a really big deal. So we brought in 45 young referees and 45 older referees, and then we had paired them up. And so then maybe one day I would be working with Tom, and maybe one day I, as a young referee, would be working with Roy, and maybe another day, and reffing together, right? Well, one night the young kids went out and they went drinking. Unfortunately, they made the critical error of drinking with the coaches, the assistant coaches who were also young. You know, the assistant coaches of these club teams are in their 20s. Yeah. Well, these 20-year-old assistant coaches were drinking with the young referees, and they were all night, you guys, partying, which is great, good for them. However, this poor little referee, this little girl, the next morning woke up hungover, and then she was refereeing one of the teams that she had been drinking with the night before. And the assistant coach told the head coach, hey, I was drinking with her until like 3 or 4 in the morning, and she's drunk, and she shouldn't be reffing our game. It's funny how the coaches love us at night when they're out drinking with us, but then the next morning they you know, throw us in the river. So the coach came to me afterwards, and that team lost, and the coach came to me afterwards and said, that girl was out drinking with my coaches, and she's horrible. And I went, understood. And I asked her, how do you know this? She goes, because my assistant coach was drinking with her. And I said, well, that's horrible. Your assistant coach shouldn't be out drinking with my refs. So she goes, okay. I go, you talk to your coach, I'll talk to my ref. So then I went into the room, found a group of kids, all of them, not just her, because remember, she got caught, but the rest of them, they were all there too. So we got a big table, and we had just a loving conversation about, if you're going to go out and do things you're not supposed to be doing, make sure you do it privately so that folks don't know about it. And second of all, maybe you shouldn't be going out until 3, 4 in the morning, maybe midnight, so that at least people feel like when you wake up in the morning, you're fresh and ready to go. So, you know, what do? Kids are kids. I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm saying kids will be kids. And so we kind of just had a nice talk with them and said, okay, come on, let's get back on track. And off we went. And I received some notes from the kids. They thought they would never ref again after I found out. But, you know, what's the point of that? I mean, we need these young, talented kids. And the final thing I'll say on this, it's important. You guys are unaware of it, but I had a very close friend, was the athletic trainer for the Green Bay Packers. And for you guys that don't, Green Bay Packers are a famous American football team. And the Packers have some guys on that team that don't behave either. I mean, these pro football players are sometimes misbehaving, but they don't kick the pro football player who's got a lot of talent off these teams. They get them mentoring and training, and they kind of rehabilitate them or try to keep them on the path. We have to do the same thing for our young referees, because they just, you know, the good ones we have to hold on to. And even in America, the ones that aren't so good, we have to keep, because we don't have enough referees, and we never will.
Do you have somebody who's in charge of this mentoring to give some guidelines to the mentors? You mean,
yes,
everybody wants to be a mentor, but then you have to choose who's really a good mentor, because sometimes I want to be a mentor, but eventually my my personality is not so good, I'll be shouting or talking badly to the student, which is wrong.
No, and that's why the training. We are working on training modules for our mentors that talk about the way we want mentoring to happen. We want, a positive mentoring approach. We want it to focus on what they are doing well, not on what they're not doing well. And the loving kindness campaign, we have a loving kindness campaign it's hashtag L&K. And it's very important that we bring this approach to our young people so that, the reality is that the coaching style that we're seeing now in FIVB and in our conferences and our federations is, hey, if I had to do this, this is what, think about doing this. They're not telling us anymore, you were wrong, that was dumb, this is what you should have done. They're saying, hey, my 2 cents on that call is I would have done this. And so that you can think about it and go, okay, that's a good idea. When your mother when your mother or father, I don't know about you guys, but I remember I had 4 older sisters. And when my father would come in and said, you will do this, my sister did the absolute opposite because that was my sister. Yep. And I had, they were rebellious. And, when you walk in and you tell somebody, even though you're telling them the right thing, do this, it just doesn't work anymore. Kids want to know why. They're always asking why would you do that? College coaching, by the way, when I coached for 25 years at the college level, and the last 4 years or 5 years, I'm telling you what, I had more why questions from players. It's just the kids want to know why they're doing stuff, and referees are no different. Like, why would you do that? Why would you call that? Why would you speak to them this way? I don't understand why you would speak to them this way. I would do this. And I think this questioning that they have, I just think out of respect for young people, let's talk to them about, these mentoring system styles. The problem is some of us grew up with this authoritarian approach. So you're right. We don't, and when we're questioned, we don't respond well to people that are questioning us. And trust me, I've been yelled at. I remember one time, and I won't tell you who it was because I adore this mentor. This mentor is amazing. But I was at a major event and I was kind of relaxed. I felt pretty good about the relationships we had. And I remember one of my mentors from a different country said, blah, blah, blah. And I said, but, I went, but, and I started to ask a question and he went, enough. And I went, whoa, right? Because it's from their culture. Their culture was very much about, there's a hierarchy in cultures, right? Yeah. And I was in a country that had a hierarchy and you do not say, but why this? And because I know this about other cultures, I said, I'm so sorry, excuse me, sir. And then it worked out. But in general, that is not working worldwide, that style. And we have to, again, teach our children that and our mentors to have a good communication together, because only in that way can we bring in this next generation that really is they want to have a discussion. They want to be a part of it all, right? And I would argue their mind is going. They're thinking always about things.
This is, I think, one of the changes that the FIVB is doing also with the referee delegates, referee coaches today. Past few years, you would not argue with a referee delegate when he was giving his critique or disagree with him or anything.
A discussion, like right? I would call it discussion.
Have a discussion with him.
Right, and it's not even about, like, let's say, Arturo ends up being one of my coaches in the future, and Arturo says, hey, Patty, blah, and I've worked with Arturo, so I go, but Arturo, what about this? I want to discuss, I'm not saying, Arturo, you're wrong, I'm saying, but what about this? But what about that? The but word, the why and but word are the 2 words that are common, and so Arturo needs to be able to say to me, hey, I'm just telling you that, I noticed when I'm reffing or when I used to ref or when I'm watching games with the great referees, this is the approach they're taking, but it's your choice. I think that's another thing. When someone says, hey, Patty, it's your choice, but this is my advice to you, it makes me go, okay, now I can go back at night, think about these things, watch video and go, okay, I see now. Particularly the videos coming in handy. I'm noticing that kids love to see the video. Look at what this referee did. See how he did this? Or when I'm at an event, I'll bring a young referee with me and we'll watch the great referees. We'll watch like Andrew Robb. I'll bring a referee and we go watch Andrew Robb and go, look at Andrew. Look at how he looks at the coach. Look at how he's smiling. Look at how he's relaxed. Look at how he's listening. Look at the words he's using. Words are important, like how we use our words. And then the young person can watch and go, oh my gosh, I see these things,
I think in these days, visually information
Yes.
is more easy for them to absorb rather than just reading books or trying to figure out from rules and regulations.
Right, and this is the thing. We're accessing right now our coaching education program. Karch Karai and all his staff did a great high performance academy that I was able to listen to this last month. It lasted 4 weeks for players, but it was really for players and coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as a referee, was listening in. And you know, the reality is that our referees are players too. Like, I describe all our referees as athletes. They're all athletes. They got to be in shape. And they've got to be trained, and they're playing a game. I mean, we're performance. You know, when we're performing as an athlete, we're having to blow our whistle. We're having to make signals. No different than techniques that a player has to make. And so if I'm trying to teach, let's just say, let's say I'm trying to teach Danica how to pass. I'm trying to teach Danica how to pass the ball. What am I going to do? Just speak to her and say, hey, stick your arms out, get your platform here, get yourself lined up, and speaking. And then I say, go do it. She's not going to have, if she hasn't seen it, she's not going to have any idea what a pass would even look like, which is why Danica has to be with another player, and we have to show modeling. We got to model the player that we want Danica, so she can see the other great passer and then model that behavior, either by video or live. But you wouldn't expect to speak to Danica and then say, okay, now go do it. No. It's impossible as an athlete. A basketball shooting a basket, a kid needs to see somebody actually shoot the ball. They need to be actually live shooting the ball with another player. So we need to do the same kind of theme. If we're going to say we're coaches, then let's treat our referees as players, and let's treat them as players and give them the training as players and the encouragement as a player. Players want to make crazy shots. I still remember one time when I was trying to do this fancy behind the back crazy shot. My basketball coach, who was really old school, said, just shoot the ball. He was so mad at me because I kept losing it and, couldn't get it organized. And, it was funny because, I didn't want to be simple. I wanted to kind of be fancy. Now, I do want to show you, I'm so sorry. Nap time is always sacred. And she's going off to, this is the angel. Yeah. So sorry, everyone, but this is bye-bye. She's saying bye-bye, night-night. But one thing I did when I had this COVID thing is I put my family first because we can't travel now. So I always say good morning and nap time and nighttime. So she's up. So thanks. No, it's a relationship. I mean, that's the reason. Okay, the final thing I'm going to say. You stay in friendships because a relationship is built. Okay, so Roy, because you're doing these things, Roy, I knew you. I still remember the bombing. I remember you in the bombing, right? That's the one thing particularly. When you showed that, I went, oh my God. I felt like, I felt like almost like I knew you then, even though I didn't know you very well, Roy. Yeah, but now with all these events that you're doing, I'm getting to know you more, and I'm seeing more faces. I'm becoming more familiar with people that I haven't seen, like Helena. I worked with her one time. The more you build relationships, the more you want to be with those people, the more you want to come back, the more you want to do events. So that's how you keep people in the game. And so if a mentor is unwilling to have a relationship with another referee, then what's the point of refereeing? I'm going to go someplace else where I can have a relationship with people. People are meant to be with other people. We're meant to be in a pack. No one's a loner. You may have decided to become a loner, but you didn't start that way. We belong to a group of people. And we have got to begin to remember that if in any of our countries, and particularly in America right now, because children are really being distracted, there are so many choices they can have. And there's a lot of tension happening because of the fan behavior. We've got to build relationships in our young people so that they want to continue playing, coaching, and then reffing. They need to go, I'm best friends with these people. Like I was best friends with Tom and Doug and Neil. They were always so nice to me. I felt like they were my friends. Even though I was younger than they were, they always made me feel like we had a relationship. And so I wanted to stay in that relationship because I had more fun with them than I had with other coaches. I was reffing rather than being with my coaching friends. Why? Because I was closer to my reffing friends.
Yeah, you feel like a part of a group, a part
it
of.
It has to be.
Part of something that is bigger, like a family. They always talk about the volleyball family.
Yes.
So some kind of you see it like your second family. Everybody who's
yes.
you and talking, saying my volleyball friends, my second family, my second thing. My wife calls
And-
the volleyball my lover. I mean, that I cheat
Yes,
on her
no.
with my volleyball and everything.
Absolutely. And as mentors and coaches, we've got to remember that we are the mother and the father of these young people, and we have to treat them with a loving and kind. And we want you to stay home in the family. We don't want our kids running away from home. That's what's happening. The referees aren't coming because they're saying, why would I be here and be abused? Why would I be here and be yelled at by my coach or by these parents? I can go someplace else and feel good about myself. Why would they go someplace where people are saying you're horrible, you stink? Why are you reffing? Why would they do that? It makes you wouldn't do it unless, we're a unique group here. The fact that we're all on Zoom right now, and when we could be doing something else, says that we place volleyball in a unique position. But young kids just starting out, it's just reffing. It's not like something that they're crazy about. They want to do it to make money, to have friends, and to have fun. And we got to say, people say to me, well, Patty, that means, if you're going to talk about money with kids, saying it's all about the money, I'm like, it is with children all about the money. There's two things kids want to do. These 16 to 25-year-olds, they want to make money because they have to pay bills. Mm-hmm. They want to make friends and they want to have fun. That's it. People say to me, well, you should say, well, the integrity of the game. The kids don't care about the integrity of the game. I care about it, but the children don't. They want to have friends, have fun, and make a little bit of money. And also control their schedule. That's another thing in refereeing. You can control when you work or when you don't work. It's such a great thing. Yes, I can work this weekend. I don't work that weekend. So this idea that we all have to be making sure that we're outreaching, we're calling people. Like, one final thing on this kind of recruitment thing. I keep getting texts. Just so you know, this election coming up in November is serious. I keep getting texts. You know who from? You know who from? The Democratic Party of Wisconsin. Really? They text me every day, and I get phone calls from Ethel. Ethel is a mentor they've assigned to me. Her only job is to call me and get me to vote in November for you-know-who, and you-know-not who, and also to get me to get my friends to vote. She calls me and texts me every day. You guys, that's a recruiting and mentoring program. The Democratic Party of Wisconsin is serious about changing the leadership this fall. And they have amped it up to a level I have never seen before. I've never had this happen before. And I'm getting emails every day from Ethel. And she's Ethel. I think she's old because they're recruiting seniors. And she is texting, I don't know the numbers that she's going after, but she has been assigned to go after us and get us to vote. In fact, one time I texted back, I said, you don't need to text me anymore. I'm voting this way. She goes, oh, that's okay. I'm supposed to text you every day. I'm like, oh my gosh. That's incredible. And so I thought of that for officiating. Can you imagine if every week I officiated I texted a young referee and said, hey, I'm thinking about you, looking forward to seeing your referee this spring. I mean, these kids would feel really good about the fact that they're wanted and needed in this game that we have.
Yeah, it's a very good idea. It's a very good opinion.
But even remember, you only need to do it one person. Sometimes we say, well, it's too much work. Not if you pick just one person. Mm-hmm. Pick one person that you can help keep them in the game. And it's not even about coaching them. It's about encouraging them. Don't even be their coach. Just encourage them to keep reffing. I mean, that's what it's about. You don't need to be their teacher. You can just be the one that doesn't let them quit. You're the one they go to when things maybe aren't so good, or maybe they got yelled at, or maybe the baby they can't do the baby in the roughing. You're the one that keeps them, let's say they take a year off because they have a baby. You're the one that gets them to come back after that baby. We lose women after they have children and then never come back. You're the one that gets them, hey, come on back, we need you, after the kids go off to school.
Okay. Let's talk about a little bit about your career. You whistled the top matches in all categories, World Championships, Continental, Olympics. Today, when you are up there on the referee chair, are you still excited? Are you nervous? Do you feel still the thirst, the hungry, the for the
Yes, I am. It's fundamentally volleyball. Once I started at that young age, once it finally came in, I'm a sport. I love sports. I just love everything about sports, everything about being active, everything about going to I love to go to football games, baseball games. So for me, being in a sporting venue, it doesn't matter what kind it is. But of course, when you're at the big games where there's 20,000 people at a game, you know, Nebraska will host a game and there's, oh my gosh, there's so many people at the Nebraska game, or, you know, you're at a big international event, or even Norseca. I mean, you have just great crowds. I love being with the athletes and with the coaches. You know, the main reason I started reffing was so that I could be on the court learning from the best players in the world and the best coaches in the world. I loved reffing for the sole purpose of listening to what the women were saying and the men, listening to what the coaches were saying, watching the techniques. I'm, for some reason, have and I've always thought it was my coach one time, my juniors coach one time said, it's very interesting, Patty, that you're actually reffing the game, but you're looking at it differently. Like, I don't really ref the game. I kind of watch the game, and then my whistle goes off when my brain triggers the fact that something happened that shouldn't have happened. But I'm often like evaluating the game from a more outside. I'm outside looking down on it. So I always have great joy when I'm at the venue and watching. I love, like, even at a game when I'm not reffing, I love being in the stands, just watching the energy level of the whole event. Being in the court with the coaches and players and with my teammates, that's just a whole different. I treat it like a game. I mean, we're a team and we're in a game. I don't even feel like I'm reffing. I feel like I'm part of the whole system. Mm-hmm. And that's what's been really lucky for me, that I perceive it this way. And that was a big help from my mentors. I mean, Tom and Doug and Neil and Steve Robb, all these guys would come to an event and they'd be talking to the coaches, saying hey to the players, you know, really, really showing me that it's the event is, and even like, I still remember being at an event, it was a Division I, I refereed a Division I event in the playoffs. And I remember when I came to the venue, I did feel a little bit like I was in the movies. It was the Final Four for women's volleyball, and we had a huge arena, 25,000. And I remember walking in the arena, and one of the guys who was a security goes, "Hey, refs, how you guys doing?" And I saw his tag, and I was like, "Hey, Bob, how are you? I can't believe we're here." And he goes, "Well, congratulations." And then I brought Bob a present the next day because the security guys were amazing. So I bought a bunch of presents for the security guys. And then there were some custodians kind of bringing us food in our locker room and drinks. So the whole refereeing staff brought presents for the custodians that were taking care of us. And then the next thing you know, they said that we were the best reffing crew they've ever had. And you guys, they've had some major reffing groups. They've got the NBA and the college basketball. I mean, they've got big time guys. I would perceive that we aren't big time like those guys were, gals were. And, but because we built this relationship with all these helpers, that I met more people at that tournament. And it was so much fun. The television guys, the news groups, if you take the time to say hi to people and build relationships, for me, that's really the part of the whole picture of the event.
I will say something from my experience when I was in one tournament. I think it was in Mexico or Puerto Rico together. Usually when there's a tournament and I'm not wrestling, I like to sit with the crowd in the benches.
Yeah.
To mingle around and everything. And I was sitting there without my tag. Nobody knew that I was a referee. It was the beginning of the tournament. And there was a small child sitting next to me, and he was looking at me because I was with my dress code, my tie and everything. And the match started, and I gave him a pin. I had a small pin, from the Israeli Federation, and I gave it to him, and he was smiling and everything. Then the next match, I was the ref. I was nominated for the next match. So I went down and I whistled it, and I saw from the corner of my eye, I saw that kid, and he was standing like that with his eyes open, watching me the whole match. From time to time I picked it. And when the match finished, he came down with his father, and he just swung at me and gave me a big hug. So I like to give those people the notion, you can sit with the crowd, you're one of them together, and then they will never know they have one of referees, maybe one of the top referees, one of the things sitting next to them and just goes to work afterwards being a part there. It involves everybody. It gives the feeling of being involved in this thing of volleyball.
That's right. That's right. And particularly if you can focus on, remember when the children, I still remember being in Peru, mm-hmm. and all the ball kids were girls, a bunch of little ball girls, and they were high school kids. And I brought when I come from the US, I bring a lot of pins and little things that I purchase for for folks, but I had luckily got a whole big bag of volleyball pins for my federation. So I gave the little girls a bunch of pins, and then every morning those little girls would come running at me for more presents. I mean, it was ridiculous. I felt like they were a bunch of little puppies running for their treat, and they were so cute. But every day so it got to the point, you guys, where they were doing this big heart sign every time I walked into the gym, and then they'd run and mob me and give me hugs, and there were about 10 of them. And then their mothers would come out of the stands, and we were taking pictures. And by the end of the tournament, you guys, on Facebook, I'm actually close to 2 of them still. And it's been almost 10 years with this Peru group. But these little girls will grow up and be players and coaches and refs. So particularly, I want them to become referees. So don't underestimate your power of people saying, oh, those referees, they're so nice. I want to be a referee. Yeah. Because if you're mean, or if you're not even saying hi, why would a kid want to grow up and be you? I mean, you're crabby and you're crabby would be the 2 words. Nobody wants to be you. Kids want to have fun. And so they're not going to look up and go, oh, look how stoic Nick is. Nick is so serious. Nick is such a great rep. And he is really mean to people, and I want to grow up and be him. Kids don't say that. So, you know, put on your game face when you're on the floor. But I like, let's talk about Carrie Walsh and Misty May, the 2 famous beach players. You guys, everybody in the world loves those 2 ladies. Yeah. If you haven't been to an event, when we were in Rio, I went and watched them play. And when Carrie Walsh, first of all, when Carrie Walsh was playing, the Brazilians were cheering louder for her than they were cheering for the Brazilians. They love her because she loves them. Yeah. And when the match would end, Carrie Walsh would go around the entire stadium and shake everyone's hand, and no matter win or lose, she is smiling. She's giving kisses to the babies. She's shaking every single child's hand as she goes all the way around the stadium, win or lose. And I watched her and I went, oh my gosh, she gets it. She's building her own recruiting fan base. Who wouldn't want to be on Carrie Walsh's team? You're going to join Instagram. You're going to join Carrie's Twitter feed. You're going to come to every game. And those Brazilians cheered. You guys, I was in shock between her and April Ross. It was a craziness, particularly when you have Misty and Carrie together. Those 2 women, and this goes for refereeing those. As a referee, you cannot just, you can. I have great referees that are they come into the gym, they do their job, they leave. Perfect. But they're not helping with recruiting. So I make that my job. I work hard when I'm at an event, I work hard to recruit. And that means that I want anybody watching me when I'm reffing and when I'm leaving, that they say, wow, she is a nice lady and I want to grow up and be like her. Now it's a little trickier now that I've gotten older, but a lot of the young female refs like Danica and Lena and, you know, our Karina and Mary Cameron, those are the women that the kids will look up to and say, okay, I want to grow up and be like them. I mean, it's harder to look at me now and say, okay, I want to grow up and be look like that grandma who's still reffing. But, you know, the young ones, you got to make sure that in those stands are potential refs. And, you know, there's a challenge with referees. We can't be friendly to all the fans in Brazil, right? But we can be polite and kind and good to our ball kids and good to the line judges who have their own children. And by doing those things, you build a coalition of people saying, those refs are super cool and we want to grow up and be like them. And it happened to me at the Olympics. In '96, when I was in Atlanta line judging, I had no intention of becoming a top-level referee, or if I did, I didn't think really it was possible. I know my buddies, I know my mentors said, hey, you know, think about this in the future, but really it wasn't there because I was busy. I had children, I had a job, and I was trying to referee at the college level. But when I went to the Olympics, those refs, and, you know, if you don't know who that 96 squad of referees are, you should, because they're all leaders now. And they were all my mentors, but particularly they're the heads of every major federation. They were the nicest, kindest, generous, always included the line judges, which they said had never happened before. We were invited to everything, everywhere with them. And I went, oh my God, this is the nicest group of men ever. And I want to ref. And that's what happened. 96.
I think
that's when it started.
I think it's showing appreciation. I mean, you appreciate the work of your refs, your group, and also the ball retrievers and the And the moppers, everybody is on the same group. We are all in the
That's
same
right.
group. If one of
We
these
are.
two doesn't do his work correctly, the team doesn't work correctly, it destroys the show to everybody. So
Yes, that's
showing
right.
this appreciation is really important. Well,
That's right.
now that you are at the top level, you whistled so many matches every year, being out of home for long periods, internationally and nationally as well. How did the family accept it? Does it influence you personally?
Well, you know, you guys, I've got to be, and I know a lot of people have heard this story here, like Tom has heard it, and it's a little bit embarrassing. I don't want, I'm giving you quite a bit of insight into me personally, but I did get lucky. I have a unique situation. I mean, other people, you know, they have husbands who have jobs and careers, really serious careers, and have a little bit more challenge managing. Like if I had my career and my husband would have been a doctor, for example, or would have been a full-time, you know, it doesn't even have to be anything that requires a lot of time at work and needing a wife to be around. People joke to me when I say to you this, I was the worst wife and mother in the whole world. It's a true story. And I mean that I was a really good mother when I was there. You know, you got to realize that, you know, I'm politically very active. I ran for a political position for 6 years. So every night I'd have school board meetings. I was on the school board in this very big city. So when I was younger, I was crazy. I just love I'm very curious. So I was a coach full time and I was teaching classes at the university, and I was running for office, and I was reffing college, and I was reffing internationally. And then I had my 2 children and my husband. I still look back at that. I mean, because I'm better now. I feel like I'm better now. I've calmed down a little bit, and I'm focused on, you know, basically 2 things: my reffing and my directorship. But I got lucky with my husband. I'm telling you that right now. My husband Kent. When we got married, I said I knew when I got married, and if I did marry, and there was thoughts of maybe not marrying because I knew it probably wouldn't last because I'd be a terrible wife. That I said to him, and and he's a farmer. He's a farmer out of Minnesota. They have a big farm, and he has cows and corn, and so I think that helped me. They have a family of 8. They were very busy, and he was the oldest of 8 children, and he had to care for all the little ones while his mother and father were working very hard to support this farm family. And I said to him, if we get married, let's just be clear, I'm working and my job comes first, which is horrible. Who says that to their husband? And but my husband loved me, and he goes, okay, good. And I said, and number 2, you can't leave me no matter how bad it gets, or I'm going to hunt you down. And by the way, there is a piece of paper. Remember, we were 20 years old, but there's a little blue sticky that says, I will not leave you, or you will hunt me down and kill me. It does say that as a joke, but you know, maybe not, I don't know. Yeah. So we both signed these little stickums that said, no matter what, we'll stick together, no matter how crazy it gets. So I was fortunate to have a husband that actually, when my job really took off, my coaching career took off, my officiating took off, my political career took off, I told my husband, you cannot work. The children, it was crazy. And I'm very focused on my children, and knowing that they were off with other people and we were dropping them off here and there, I said, this is stopping. So he quit work and stayed home with the children for almost 20 years. So I was fortunate that I had a husband that literally, when I left, in fact, the Olympics, I would say in '96, I was gone for almost a month when the children were babies. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I flew away, he had, good luck. And when I came back and I landed in Minneapolis, and my mother and my husband came to pick me up, I was crying because I wanted to go back to the Olympics. I really was. I was bawling. And I said, I don't want to come home. I want to go back with my friends. And my husband looked at me, and he goes, he had the 2 babies. He had my 3-year-old and my 10-year-old. He goes, honey, the children are here. And I go, I know. Can't we all go there together? Oh my God, you guys. I was a funny girl back then. And the biggest thing I have to say is that I sometimes don't even, how do people do it when they're single parents, a man or a woman? How do people do it when they have two people that have huge careers? It's not easy. It requires incredible cooperation, right? And help. you need help. And I think that's another thing. You've got to be willing to ask for help. My mother often watched the children when I would be gone for these really long stretches. She would come up and really help us take care of the babies when I was running around doing my work. So you have to call in friends and family to help you because if you want to do great things, like be a great player, be a great coach, or be a great ref, it requires a significant commitment of your time, and you have to be willing to ask people to help you. And by the way, it's not because you can't do it. We know you can do it. The challenge is, particularly, I would say, for women, because culturally, women are supposed to be home with the children, that you have to call in your friends, your brothers, your sisters, your mother, your father, your friends to say, I need you to watch the kids for this week or whatever to support you while you're at these major events, because these events last a long time. I mean, they last a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, some of these events. It's not so easy to be gone.
Let's talk about the matches and the procedures that you do during the match. How are you ready even before receiving a nomination? Do you have like a bag ready in your closet with all the stuff? Do you prepare yourself professionally, reading the rule books or the guidelines and everything on a regular basis?
I'm a firm believer that you approach the game as you would a player or a coach. You can't be a great basketball player if you pick up the basketball right before the game. You know, if I want to make my shots, or if I want to hit a goal, or if I want to, know how to hit my line or my cross court shot, I can't do that. Have a practice the day before, like we have our practical. You can't just show up to your practical wherever you are and expect then the next day, boom, you're gonna by magic you're gonna be on. And sometimes you only have one match. I mean, you have one match to be on, and then you don't do a good job, you're off for a long time, or maybe ever. So it really is important to stay. I don't think you have to do it every day, but I would argue that the best athletes do it every day. But for those of us that have lives, we have work, we have families, and we are officials, is try to stay in it somehow. Working out, talking to a friend, talking about, watching games. I like to watch games. Well, fundamentally, my favorite thing to do is to watch games. So I like to watch bits of games. Just a couple days ago, they had a couple college games on because, of course, nothing's going on. So they're putting up these beach games, these college games. The AVP was playing. That's our pro league. They were on. I like watching that. So it's to stay relevant as much as you can under whatever circumstances you have, and do the best you can. Now, if you can't do that, and trust me, there were a few years, I got to be honest with you, that I was like a fish just trying to get air. I was not, it wasn't pretty. I was sinking. And I wasn't able to do as much as I would have liked. And Tom Blue, who's, I'm sorry, Tom, but I see your face right below my head here, and that's why I keep bringing up your name. But Tom Blue was aware that my schedule was crazy. I was so, the coaching and when I was on the school board, that really absorbed a lot of the time. It was one of the most incredible experiences, but took a lot of my time away from the officiating. And so when I'd go to an international event, I hadn't been in touch with the rule. I mean, I'd studied the rules, but hadn't been like working with them, right? And I would go to an international event, and I felt a little bit like a fish out of water. But the bottom line there is, and this is something I really want to encourage this group and whoever is going to be listening, is that there are moments when you aren't going to be able to get as much practice in. You're not going to be in the best shape you want to be in. You aren't going to even maybe have done anything for months and months and months. The key is keep going. I would argue you're a little bit like an actor. You aren't getting jobs, right? But you're still going to keep just apply. You're going to apply. You're going to apply. But you're not getting the jobs. What are you going to do, quit? You love acting. I listened to a program about an actress who said this person didn't get any work. Nobody was hiring him. And the next thing you know, he took this horrible position, and at this ridiculous kind of TV series. And of course, the series went nuts. And at the age of 50, and he's been acting for 25 years, he's famous now. And for some of us, we have to remember, if you enjoy reffing, if you appreciate it, if you like being with the people, just keep at it. Just keep, do what you can during some of these years when maybe you've got the babies and the children and the husband's not being very helpful, or you're you're a single parent. You can't take as much time as I could. I could go anywhere at any moment and any time. I still remember landing from one international event on a Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. And when I landed, I opened up my email, and there was an email from Narseca saying, "We need you in Mexico. A ref got sick. Can you leave tonight at 9? We got you a flight." And of course, I left and told my husband, "I'm going to Mexico for another 2 weeks. I'll see you later." And so I flew to Mexico. I literally took my bag, stayed at the airport, and then flew to Mexico that night. That's not normal. I mean, that's not a normal person that can do that. I mean, if you got responsibilities, you can't just run and leave. But I was doing full-time roughing, and I had a husband who was insane. Mm-hmm. So, and children who were actually accepting that and didn't have issues and with me doing that. So, yeah, you just got to, do what you can with what you've got.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Cool.
Some of you are going to get lucky and be able to do a lot of things. Some of you are only going to be able to do so much. But the thing is, you're still good enough, and we still need you. So just do what you can with what you got.
So when you're traveling to a match, nationally or internationally, how is your mental state? What I'm trying now to show and talk about is not the rules and everything, or how everybody has to whistle, but the mental issues of a referee, of a top referee, and maybe to try to understand that. So during the travel, do you listen to music? Do you read the rule books? Do you have a special state of mind that you go into?
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw the program. CEV did a program where you had Lotto and Yuri were kind of, I thought it was hysterical. They were kind of in their uniform. It was like, hey, man, they were sitting by the fire, remember? I was dying of laughter. I thought that was the funniest little, I mean, they were like two relaxed pros. And one of the things you heard was they just want to be calm. Mm-hmm. You heard it. Like, we just try to be relaxed. We try to just, get prepared, not get ourselves too jacked up. Because remember, the event itself is going to raise your level of energy. The event itself is creating some drive in you. So I do think, for me, when I go on an international event, I think I'm going on vacation. I love going on trips. It gets me away, because, in my other job, it's very stressful. And I love getting on an airplane. I love getting my books out. I like to study when I'm on the plane. I love to listen to some books on my audio. And when I get to the event, I love being in new cities. So I really just try to appreciate the opportunity to travel overseas and to meet new people and to just experience the trip itself. I love flying. I love getting dropped off at an airport and not being certain if anybody's going to even pick me up, which has happened more than once. I remember one time I got dumped in a place, and I was in the airport for 6 hours because they forgot. I still remember getting the call, and I called Tom. Tom, this is one that's you too. I called Tom and said, Tom, how long should I wait at the airport before maybe somebody comes and gets me? He goes, well, give me a few minutes. And so Tom called around to the Federation, and then I get a phone call to my phone. And they said, oh, I'm so sorry, Patty, we forgot you were coming in today, which was a riot. So they said, hey, take your credit card, get a cab, and drive get the cab to go to this place. And by the way, it was a 3-hour cab drive, and 500 American dollars later, 500 American dollars on my credit card. But you know what? You got to relax. You got to just, and so I very with a sense of humor, and Tom has a great sense of humor. Tom just said, hey, get in the car, give him your credit card, and if you get reimbursed, good for you.
I think it's like in National Geographic, or the Travel Channel where you go, somebody is taking a trip to, he just buys the ticket, the first ticket that he can find in the airport, and
he goes
somewhere, and whatever happens, the unexpected.
Yes, and that's the thing. You got to be ready for the unexpected. So, most, and by the way, folks, most of the trips go very well. But every once in a while, these tournaments have a lot going on. So I do think ultimately when you head on a trip, you got to make sure you have the things. I need a headset. I need my books. I need my computer. I actually carry paper rule books. I don't like, other people have the tablets. They go, Patty, you have this huge 3-ring binder. with all the guidelines, the rules, the cases. I love my 3-ring binder of paper. I bring it with, it's heavier than, I mean, you guys, it's this thick, but I put it in my backpack and I bring it on every trip. I love that thing. And I bring it to every gym, every locker room. And so there's certain things I have to have. And yes, my bag is packed. It's when I come back from a trip, I wash all my clothes. I put it all back in to make sure I don't lose anything. And it's really easy then to take off. I don't have to pack, and that's what I want. And then when I go, I'm pretty much on vacation, ready to go have a great time with a bunch of great people.
How do you prepare yourself before the match at the hotel, even before you arrive to the venue? What are your?
I have a pretty consistent routine. I like to get up. I like to, well, everybody gets up, but I like to get up and I like to go work out. And working out is for me, I always work out because it relieves anxiety. And I don't mean anxiety in terms of like I'm anxious, but I have a lot of energy. And that's a bit of a problem. So like the baby right here, this little baby, this grandchild in this house, if that girl isn't outside for at least 2 to 3 hours a day, you guys, she is a holy, and we call it in America, a holy terror. She runs around. I mean, she'll run around like a dog like this. I've never had a baby. I've never seen a baby like this little granddaughter. She has more energy than all of this house combined. And she wears us down. So my daughter, who's her babysitter, full-time babysitter, this morning at 8:30 in the morning, they left and they didn't come back for 3 hours. This baby will make you crawl trying to keep up with her because she has a level of energy. When I was younger particularly, but even now, I have a lot of energy. So I make sure I work out, and that brings everything down a notch, and I feel calm. And then I like to eat with my team. So we have breakfast together. I go work out, and then I go back to my room and I study a bit because I like to study significantly bored. I mean, I kind of review things because remember, I still have 4 different rule sets in my brain. So I really try to get it like hardwired in before I get to these events. So I'm always studying, and then we have lunch together. I think that's super duper important. And then in the afternoon, normally, depending on when you depart for the facility, I go. So my day is really planned around working out, getting my meals, making sure I've got food in me, and then just preparing to make sure everything's ready to go to get to the gym. I do like to get to the gym a little bit earlier than most people, but normally a lot of the people I work with don't like to be there too soon because you do end up just sitting around. Mm-hmm. But that's in general my routine. And I really try to take it pretty low key. I try to just be pretty low key, get there and create this calm space.
Do you have any superstitions or any charms or any luck things that
I used to. No, Roy, that's so funny. I used to have to have, like, for example, I had to have a certain uniform. I used to have a certain whistle. And when I was a younger player, I used to actually have to wear a certain pair of socks, which is crazy because that's hard to make sure. But I've kind of worked through that, thank God, because, the thing is, if you have to have certain things and then you don't, let's say you can't find your whistle. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. So I've actually kind of tried to break myself of those things, right? If I can't get a workout in, because there's sometimes you can't get the workout in, or maybe you missed breakfast because somehow you missed your buddies. So I don't have that as much. I do have a certain uniform. And my uniforms, I did have a uniform, because we get a lot of different uniforms every year, different kind of sizings. Yeah. So to feel super good, I used to like to have a certain uniform I'd wear for certain games. But even now I've gotten a little bit better at that. So no, I don't have that. But I do appreciate that because that was a serious thing when I was younger. I had a lot of rituals that I had to have happen.
When you arrive to the venue before the match, how do you prepare yourself mentally? Do you check the match before if it has a potential to be a difficult match? Do you talk to the co-referees on the venue? Kind of a protocol, like a preparation protocol to the match that you have?
Yeah, and I particularly am in tune with my fellow referees. I mean, some referees don't want to get into all that stuff. So I really try to focus on what the group needs. I'm a big team player. So I do like to go up to the challenge booth and say hey to the challenge people. So I'm familiar with who they are and my communication style. I do like to know who my challenge referee is. And again, the type of communication and how they're going to say certain things because, some challenge referees speak differently than others in terms of how they portray touch calls or whatever. So we just review some of that. I do like to kind of see the venue and the layout of the facility. Like if you're a golfer, you want to play the course, right, before you actually play the course. So I like to just check the course out, check to see how the gym is, the venue, the setup, the tablets. I like to find out, like Maolo, who does the data volley, I like to know where he's sitting. I want to make sure that who my guy is or gal is who's helping. So I normally kind of go in and do like a recon, we call it, of the whole place to make sure I know the lay of the land. And then, yes, sometimes with the referees, and remember, there's a lot of times there's a guy's locker room and a girl's locker room. Many times I'm working with guys. So, and we're not changing together. And I think that creates a little separation. But, if I'm changing with Juhi or Susanna, we can chat before the game and maybe review some challenges of a coach or a player. But, as you referee certain teams more and more, that doesn't happen as much because you already know. Like if I go work with Andrew Robb, I know Andrew Robb. Andrew, I don't need it. It's like being a teammate.
Yep.
Once if I'm playing on a basketball team with certain guys or certain gals, I know my guys. We don't need to talk about anything. I know exactly what's going to happen. I more talk to people that I don't know as well. I just want to make sure that whatever, for example, Nick Hefford and I worked in Italy. So, I hadn't worked with Nick since we were a long time. So if I'm with Nick, I'm going to make sure, hey, Nick, what do you need? I want, especially as a second referee, what do you need from me? As a challenge referee, how do you want me to speak to you? I make sure, because I like to be a support player, to be honest with you. I'm much more comfortable as supporting my teammates. I would rather pass than shoot. Now, when I was younger, I'd rather shoot than pass. But I'd rather pass than shoot. So
would you say that you are more comfortable to be a second referee than a first referee?
No, and that's not it. Even as a first referee, I'm more comfortable making sure that my teammates are doing well. Does it make sense? I'm checking in with people. I'm making sure everybody has what they need. So rather than saying, hey, Nick, I need this, I'll say, hey, if Nick is my second referee, I'll say, hey, Nick, did you see that? What do you need? Can you hear my whistle? You look confused. Is my whistle not loud enough? And then, I like to be more of a asking people what they need from me rather than telling other people what I need from them.
Yeah.
The only time I've done that a few times, and that's an interesting question that you had, because certain games get to a certain place. And I only have probably 2 or 3 a year where the intensity is so high where I need everybody at the table now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's points where I have said to my second referee, hey, we need to stop talking to the coaches. We need to start reffing. If I'm with a young referee who's spending a lot of time chatting with the coaches, particularly in America, because it's a common thing here to talk to the coaches, I might then say, hey, I need this and we need to do this now. But in general, that's not my style.
Once you enter the court with your uniforms on, how is your mental state? Are you a little bit nervous? Do you work on a nervous state, or do you work on a tensive state or a calm state? How do you do the protocol? I mean, how do you control the protocol at that time?
No, it's interesting. As you spend more time with the teams, people say, well, as you gain experience, well, yeah, that's it. But no, the longer you play on a team with your teammates and the coaches and the players, because we're all, we're a team. The referees, I believe, are a team within a big team. So we're a team within a team. And even though you say, well, we're not on the Brazilian team or we're not on the Serbian team. Oh, yes, we are. Mm-hmm. We are on their team. We're on both their teams. We're the team that is actually the most neutral group on that court. We are the best of it all, because in reality, when we're at our best, the game is, as we know, beautiful. It's a beautiful game when the referees are actually at the very best they can play. So when I'm at a game, because I've spent so much time now with all these teams and all these players, and players meaning the players on the court as well as my teammates and the coaches, I am pretty much in my happy place. When I was younger, I was more stressed because I was not confident or comfortable enough yet with everyone. But because of those really 6 focused years I had, and I had the opportunity to do a lot of matches, and I mean, my 1 year I had over 500 games between what I did in the US and what I did internationally. When I went on trips, I literally felt like I was coming home. And when I go on the court, it really feels like it's my most favorite place to be. So I feel I feel like I'm back where I belong. To be honest with you, right now, I don't feel great because I'm stuck here in quarantine, and we're pretty strict here in my family. So I'm not getting to the gyms. I'm not with my friends. I'm not out working. I'm not getting on airplanes. So I, honest to God, feel a little awkward and weird and not great. And I think that's probably happening to all of us, right? I mean, we're all like, gosh, just get me to a game somewhere. So I think that's what I think is helpful for all of us, to be with our friends and working with the teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you are on the chair, more as first referee than the second referee, we need to stay focused. I mean, the match can be average of 1.5 hours to 2 hours, could be even longer. And we need to stay on a high level of focus to keep our mind and to do the correct decisions. How do you stay focused so long? What are your techniques of staying focused so long? Do you have any ways of relaxing or recharging your focus during the match?
You know, remember now, I have an energy level that's a little bit crazy. So when you go for a walk for 30 minutes, I'll go for a walk for 3 hours because I'm trying to bring my energy level down. So the challenge I have is not always how do I stay focused. The challenge I have is to keep my energy level low. I'm going to tell you one quick funny story. I was in a game with a men's team in North. I was doing a event in Canada. Actually, Andrew was there in the crew, and I was doing the finals, and I was first refereeing, and or a semifinal, I think. I was first refereeing, and I remember one of the guys. The game wasn't going well for this team, and it was in North has some longer days, right? You might referee 2 matches in a day, and it was like the 4th day of this tournament, so we've been there for a while. And I remember my problem is that I have to focus on my job, because sometimes you start wandering off and maybe thinking about other people's jobs. Yeah. And at this moment, I wandered off, and I actually almost became a coach. Because I remember looking down, and the guy was yelling at his coach going, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And he was frustrated, and he wasn't playing well, but he was an incredible athlete. And he was right down below me on my right. He's an outside hitter. And I looked down, and I almost said, you need to get off the net, transition off the net, right? And then all of a sudden I realized that I almost started speaking to him. Like, get off the net, and you're going to be great. And then I realized, whoa, Patty, concentrate. You're a ref. You're not coaching today. So it's a matter of, I think, it's a matter of just really staying present. You know, if I ever see my brain wandering off to like, oh my goodness, what's that player doing wrong? Or, oh, that coach, what's he saying? Or, oh, look at my friend Roy in the stands, and you know, I'm smiling. It's just try to stay like a player on the court with your team. And I think that'll always protect you. I would say that I don't try to focus in. I don't try to have too narrow a focus like a horse with blinders. Mm-hmm. Some people like try to really focus in. That has never helped me. So I try to keep my mind a little open, but yet with the teams, right? So I don't end up like, you know, looking one way when the ball is landing in a different place.
Yeah. How can you describe your interaction with the participants? Do you allow talking with you, or are you strict about the behaving according to the rules, meaning pushing them away and not allowing to have a dialogue with coaches as a second referee or with the players as a first referee? Would you say that you are a strict referee or more flexible concerning the communication with the participants?
Well, let me tell you, okay, so I still have 1 year of reffing left, which is unfortunate because, well, it's fortunate. Thank God so far. I mean, I'll be reffing 1 more year, finishing up my career next year because of COVID hitting. But, you know, I believe that there is, okay, so you say strict, all right? But the strict means you're saying, I don't want to speak to you. Well, that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. anymore. And it never has worked, by the way. So it's like a police officer in America. You know, if something bad happens or something good happens and a citizen comes up and says, hey, and the cop says, I'm not speaking to you, that is only going to create more problems for you. So I would hope that we're all starting to understand, you know, as parents, we have friends. If we have a friend come up or a workmate come up or your boss comes up and your boss goes, you come to your boss to say something and they go, hey, not interested in what you're saying. Tell me how that's going to go for you as an employee or for your boss, because you might be coming to help your boss, to give them something they need that may help them. May not, but it may. So I think a great referee, like a great coach, a great parent, a great friend, a great boss, a great police officer, a person comes up and says, you know, let's say you see on the stand sometimes 5 guys come up and go, whoa, like what is, and you know, the key is to go, guys, I'm listening. I hear you. Okay. I appreciate all your input, but I don't need 5 of you. Go back and let me talk to your captain, right? So the ability to talk to people respectfully and with empathy and say, okay, I'm hearing you, but I can only talk to your head coach, or I only can talk to your captain, or, you know, in a way that gets the rest of the group to go, okay, she's going to listen. We'll go back and let our captain take charge. This helps you get to the right solution. Now, it may not be a solution they want, but it's going to be the right solution for the moment. Yeah. And especially with challenge review, that even helps you more, because challenge review can solve a lot of issues that maybe got missed. So I think it's so important. And I did have one time, it was interesting. I was reffing a game in Japan when it was, we had some ridiculously hot weather. In one of the gyms, something happened to the temps. And I was reffing the Dominican team, and they were tired. And actually it was Serbia. I felt it was Serbia to Dominica. And they were, by the way, tired. It was late in this 3-week event. And I had, my pace was I was trying to keep the pace, you know, because pace is important. Yeah. And, but not too much, because I knew it was week 3. So I'd slow my whistle down a little bit. But one of the women in particular, I don't know what was happening to her, but she kept giving me dirty looks, and I couldn't figure out why. And I was really concerned like this, what is going on with this girl? Because she's a senior player on this Dominican team. And then she looked at me and she kept shaking her head. And when she goes to serve, if you're unaware of the Dominican team, they're not the fastest bunnies in the bunch. You know, they're not hustling around, and they don't go back to serve at any rate of speed. But I remember, I think I was whistling too fast on the serve. And then, and I was paying attention, but not good enough. And I remember the coach or the captain was across the gym or the court, and she said, "Hey, ref, come on!" And I was like, "What is that about?" And I saw the girl who was like not breathing well and struggling, and I looked at her and I just put my finger. I said, "Hey, come here." And she's not the captain, but I'm concerned about her because something was wrong. And then she walks over, by the way, and she was walking like this, like a tortoise. And then she looks up and I said, "Hey, what's wrong?" And she goes, "I am so tired. My legs." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I said, "Slow down." She didn't speak very good English. I go, "Slow down." She goes, So for her, I slowed down just a little bit because she was tired. And there was no games being played. And by the way, the Serbian girls looked at me and she said, "We're all tired." So I was like, "Okay, ladies, I'm slowing down." Because I didn't need to go at that normal pace that they have for TV. Yep. So I slowed down. And by the way, everybody was happy. I was happy. They were happy. And the game was better. And the girls were exhausted from these incredibly long matches that were happening. And that's where I learned, hey, you got to be a human being. You know, they're human beings. I'm a human being.
It is well known that when the teams have respect and confidence in the referees, the match will be easier to manage. It will be much smoother. How do you earn their trust and confidence?
Well, we just talked about it, right? I mean, you show them empathy. You let them know you're listening. Mm-hmm. Now, I would also argue you got to have some skills, right? You have to have some skills. So, I mean, just like if you're going to be a great player, I mean, Dwayne Wade, regardless of his personality, Dwayne Wade, the famous basketball player from Marquette, where I coached, Dwayne Wade, because he's a great player, already garners a lot of respect because he's such a great player. But then if he brings a great personality to that, is well liked by his teammates, listens to his coaches, shows respect for other competitive players, he raises to another level. That they're like, hey, this guy can play, and then he's a great guy, he's a great man or great woman. I think the referees that really raise to that next level, because remember, you can be a great player, and that's what you end up being. You're a great ref, and then that's it. That's, you know, you show your skills, but to be able to get that next place where you can really hear what the coaches are saying, you really understand what the players are looking for, you really understand how the tempo of the game has to be played. You know, when Serbia and Dominican Republic are saying, slow down, we are dying of heart attacks, and you go, no, I'm playing according to the book, that isn't going to work. So it's really important to remember that people are still just human beings. And I think it's critical that at that highest level, and I would argue at any level, is you've got to have skills. So get the skills, take your shots, practice blowing the whistle, practice making sure that the ball is dead when it hits the floor, making sure that, you know, you take advantage of your line judges and you're paying attention to your R2 and your score. Some referees don't even pay attention to the score. I think that's crazy. You got to be watching the score. You got to be seeing what they need from you. Because if you don't pay attention to your score, the next thing you know, you're missing a point somewhere, and the only person to blame is going to be you. So be aware that once you gain those skills, then the key is how do you communicate with others. That to me is so important.
How do you handle when a team or participant becomes angry at referees? It could be not an aggressive behavior, but shouting or talking, but constant, or it could become an aggressive behavior. How do you handle that?
Well, first of all, just like, you know, and it's something in America that's happening right now with the behavior of police officers. You know, when police officers have to enforce laws, you know, people aren't happy. Even I'm not happy at times with what they're doing. But the reality is how you do it, that it's de-escalation. I think de-escalating people that are angry, you can't say, hey, I agree with you. Okay, we're going to do what you want. No, this is what we have to do based on everything that we're hearing, based on my line judges, based on my R2, my scorer, everybody, the challenge result. This is what we're going to do. But how you de-escalate that angry team is, again, I mean, there are simple things of empathy. You know, my husband and I, by the way, I know it's shocking, but we fight. And we've been married 32 years now. So my husband and I, we fight. Because I'm a strong personality and he's a strong personality. We fight. But if he's not going to listen to my opinion or my thoughts and speak disrespectfully to me, we're going to, and by the way, that has happened. And then what happens? It gets worse.
Yeah.
And by the way, when he really ticks me off, I leave. Otherwise, I'm going to punch him right in the throat. Because I did grow up in a pretty aggressive Catholic, Irish Catholic, German family. And if things didn't go well, my sisters would get in fights. And I mean, all out fights. And I was the youngest. So remember, I tried to stay out of the fights because I knew I'd get killed. But, you know, and I mean that just like the teens, if you're going to not show the kind of respect to their point of view, even though you think, no, I really believe that this is the right call, that's going to escalate it. Now, there are some players that it's impossible. But the key is then you just say, I'm sorry, this is where we're going, and this is what we're doing, and you move on. You go, we're moving on. And you have to have the whole team try to function that way. You don't want to, first of all, never lie to a player. I've seen people say, no, this is the call. And by the way, I just saw the challenge review, and it was close. It could have gone either way. Yeah. But we made this decision. So a lot of times I like to talk to a player and say, hey, it's really close. I can see where you saw it out, but it's close and we're going to call it in. I'm sorry. A lot of players go, okay, got it. You know, and in America, we call this the 50-50 call. Many calls can be 50-50. It could go either way. Even on challenge review, the camera at a certain angle will show the ball out, but a different angle will show in. You know, it's tough. It's really tough. So if you can have the players understand, listen, this was a close call, but I'm going to give it to Roy. And that's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes.
How do you control your emotions during the match? Can a bench, let's say the bench or a coach, can he get you angry at him? Do you feel anger sometimes? Do you feel, you said you talked about empathy, but can empathy be to one team or one certain player, and then influence your judgment or change you. I mean, the emotions there, as a referee, you cannot stay neutral. This is really very difficult, almost impossible. Sometimes they would pursue you. They would become discussing you every ball, every time and everything, until some referees get angry. How is it?
And this is the thing. You have to attempt to prevent this questioning every single call. And you have to say, once you see that you're going down we call it the wrong path.
Mm-hmm.
Once you realize you're going down the wrong road, and you better realize it very quickly, because if you wait too long, it's hard to get it back. You have to say, we are not talking about every call. You know, I'm sorry, but we're not talking about every call. No more coming up. And I think it's like, players aren't children, but it is a little bit like my granddaughter. If she keeps, I want a popsicle. My granddaughter loves popsicles. And if she can, she tries to get a popsicle every minute of every day. She goes, popsicle? And then I have to say, instead of saying, I used to say, we'll have popsicle, you know, after we play. Well, that girl remembers everything. And so like 5 minutes later, after she played for 3 seconds, she goes, popsicle? Oh my God, you guys, she's killing me. So then I have to say, you can have a popsicle after your nap, which is then later in the day, thank God. So at least 5 hours would pass before she'd go, popsicle? So, you know, children will push you. I mean, and adults will push you. If you're letting them come up and argue every play, then why wouldn't they come up on every play? So you have to set the parameters and say, we're not going beyond this point. And so empathy, people think empathy is like you're a pushover. Empathy is simply listening, but saying, okay, now we aren't going to talk about this anymore. We talked about this once, twice, 3 times, finish, no more. And I have many a times I've said, no more. We're not talking about this ball handling, or we're not talking about this line judge, or we're not talking about me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I haven't had any game yet, but I'm waiting for the moment where someone says, you're horrible, you're horrible, you're horrible. And I'm saying, I'm sorry, but I'm your ref. And I'm horrible, but I'm all you got right now. And so no more talking about it. So I just think the empathy isn't in line with always talking. The empathy is simply being in tune and listening to others, right? But there's a point, and it comes pretty quickly with teams, because you know the fans, the television, they're not interested in seeing coaches and referees and players talking. They want to see the guys and gals play. Yeah. So you got to remember your job. Your job is to call the game and keep the game moving. Listen and empathize with them when it's legitimate, and then no more talking when it's not, because then it is a game, and then it's got to be done. And there's a way to do it, and we've all seen the best. I love watching Valdo. Valdo is amazing. I love watching Yuri. He's amazing. Susana Rodriguez is she and Juhi are the best female referees in the world, and Susana Rodriguez does an incredible job with the teams. How she talks to them, how she smiles. All she says, she just says no. I mean, she'll have a person walking towards her, and she'll just put her hand up very gently, down low, and she'll put her hand up and say no. So they turn around and they go back. You see very little issues when you watch Susana Rodriguez ref. With a good team, no issues, because people know they can't get away with what we'd all call playing games with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you feel you had made a mistake or a tough call, how does it impact you? Some referees, you know, they continue thinking about a mistake or a ball that they are not sure of. They will think about 1 or 2 rallies afterwards, and it will impact them. How do you, what kind of tools do you have to put it aside? Because everybody's trying to say, don't think about balls after the rally. Rally's done, next ball.
Right. Well, and, you know, it is a step-by-step next ball kind of thing. You know, remember, if you can approach it, I had such a great fortune to be playing a lot of sports. And I had a lot of coaches when I was a player. And then I had a lot of coaches when I was a ref, right? And a lot of athletic directors when I was coaching. I had a chance to watch some of the best coaches in the world. When I was at Marquette, I had a chance to have, you know, Dwayne Wade and Coach Tom Crean were here, and I would watch his practices. You know, the element of error is to move through it quickly, right? So it is an element of mental toughness in a sense. When a player misses a shot, they got to know that they got to stop that thought. Once they shoot, done. then they got to continue to play the game, right? They got to dribble, they got to talk to their teammates, they got to pass off, they got to take the next shot. And so the thing is to really be in the moment as much as you can. And the question is that you shouldn't even question, this is an element. And Roy, this is big for me. Perfection is the most, when people say, well, I'm looking for the perfect game, I say, well, then that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Because when you're trying to get the perfect game, you're actually distracting yourself from what you're really trying to do is to do a good job, to do it good enough, and because remember, the perfect game doesn't happen because you're trying for it. It happens by accident. When I saw a great program on television here in the U.S., I saw it about a year ago, and I don't know, Tom, maybe you saw it, but it was about the perfect game in baseball. And they interviewed the guys that have the male baseball pitchers that had the perfect game. And out of the guys they interviewed, every single one except for one guy said he's always dreamt of the perfect game. And he's always worked towards the perfect game at every game. And then that one time he got it. Mm-hmm. Every other guy that talked about the perfect game talked about how they couldn't even believe it was the perfect game because it never should have been a perfect game because they were feeling the worst they've ever felt in their career. One guy, which is my favorite story, is he was so not in the game. And he was so not that year, he said it was his worst year. He was really heavy. He'd gotten out of shape. He was overweight. And they had this long series. He ended up having to pitch in this game. And he was supposed to be just in for a couple innings. And he was horribly hungover. He'd been out the night before. He was drunk as a skunk, he said. He said when he got to the stadium, and by the way, this is a true story of a Major League Baseball game. He was sweating alcohol. And his teammates were like, oh, for God's sake. But he was starting. So he started pitching. And he said by the time he got to the fourth or fifth inning, he was nauseated because he was so from being hungover. But he was pitching the perfect game. And he goes, and then all of a sudden he goes, okay, I should be coming out now because I'm feeling sick because I'm so hungover. And then one of the guys, the catcher and he's like getting tired and he's sweating. And by the way, this man was a big guy, really heavy. And the catcher comes out and he goes, hey, you're pitching the perfect game. Can you go another inning? And he's like, oh my God, I feel ill. I'm sick. I'm supposed to be done. He was only supposed to have pitched like 2 or 3 innings. And then the coach goes, hey, stay in for another inning. Let's see if you can, because they were all laughing. And all his teammates were laughing, by the way, because they knew it wasn't going to last. Mm-hmm. And then to make the story short, because it's a funny story, he pitched the perfect game. Wow. He said he almost died doing it, but he pitched the perfect game. So the element of, and how does it relate to reffing? It relates completely to reffing. You know, the key is no matter if you're tired, if you've had the worst flight, if you've had the worst day, if you just had a fight with your boss, if you just whatever, if you can just go to the game, and get ready and appreciate all the people that are there that you care about and you have fun with and you enjoy, and get on the stand and just ref the game and not get engrossed in on what you're doing, my mistakes, me. Focus on you're going to miss a shot. You have to miss a shot. You cannot not miss a shot. Mm-hmm. So you're going to maybe miss something that you should have called. But the reality is if you stay in the moment, you just focus on continually moving forward. And even if you're sick, I mean, I've been in events where my friends are ill. They got some type of bug when they travel or they're exhausted. You just keep going. And in the end, when the match ends, you're going to have done a good job, a great job, or maybe the most amazing game you've ever reffed. And maybe not so good, but in the end, you want your average. Of all the games you do, you want your average to be a good job. Roy, if you do a good job, you're going to be a great ref. Yeah. And, my thing is we need to relax from this error. And it's a culture. Like even you asked the question. I would say, my point is, how do you not think about your mistakes? Well, because you got to stop thinking about you, and you got to think about, you're not aiming for perfection. You're just aiming to call a solid game and listen to your teammates. That's another thing. A lot of refs try to ref on their own, and you're asking for trouble. There's no team can win with one player. Mm-hmm. So, the key is that you got to listen to your teammates. And if one of your teammates is off, then you got to have the rest of the team try and pick it up. And I think that's how we all will have a solid game.
So if you had a bad match, meaning that you feel bad once the match is finished and you're in the dressing room or on your way home and you feel yourself that you did a a poor refereeing or something doesn't feel right about the match? Does it haunt you? Does it influence you? Do you keep it on for 1 or 2 days after?
Again, take it from a coaching perspective. What would your base, your kids, when you're talking to your children, when you're talking to your, if you were coaching a team, what would you say? Nothing should haunt you. Granted, if you have a horrific error that leads to a team not making it to a major championship, we're going to feel bad, right? We're going to feel really, really bad. But the reality is that if you stay with this idea that perfectionism isn't something that's even humanly something we should be aiming towards, we should be aiming for a solid top-level performance, meaning we're going to do our job and do it well. And in the end, we may reach greatness, which is what the athletes are thinking about. The issue is that when we leave a match and maybe it wasn't our best, right? We say to ourselves, you have to evaluate it as a player. A player would go back to the study. They'd study, watch the video, see what they did wrong, what they would do differently, and then put it in a box and put it to bed. Because the sooner you study your error, the challenge review tape, the next morning when we have our review with our supervisors and our coaches, we talk about what happened, what we could have done better. Not like, Roy, you did this, James, you did that. Saying, okay, what could we have done better that would have solved these couple of issues we had during the game that didn't make us feel good? And then we're finished and move on to the next game and be done. And you have to have the mental discipline. You've got to talk to yourself. And if you can't, this is what I do. I go work out. Or I go for a walk outside, or I go somewhere to take my mind off of my mind that's trying to, be disruptive. If my mind's trying to cause me problems, I either listen to a book, I either go for a run, go work out, go lift weights, do something to distract me until my next game comes so I can get back on track. And then once something good happens again, boom, we're right on the right path again.
Okay. Once you go back to the dressing room after the match, first of all, do you feel the energy go down a little bit? Do you get calmer, the tension, the focus, everything relaxes? Or are you still hypered by the match itself? Is it very important for you to talk to them?
Yeah, no, for me, because I'm exerting a lot of control over my personality, right? Because I've got an energy level. I have a tendency to be a little bit more like, especially if it goes well. I'm pretty fired up. Okay. I mean, I'm pretty fired up. So I have a tendency to go, because the game's over, now I can let my personality kind of go. And I'm not exerting as much control over my energy level. So I get a little jacked up. I get a little chatty sometimes.
You start to talk to the other referees?
Yeah. Well, no, I start talking to myself. I get a little chatty with myself, yeah. Because I in my own mind, I'm thinking about, that went really well. Even in a great game, sometimes I'm going, okay, I could have done this better. But then when we're in the locker room, and if we have a great game, I mean, I still remember Juhi and I had a game that was amazing. And I was in the locker room with her, and she goes, Juhi goes, Pati, I'm tired. You talk too much. And I did. I was talking way too much. So anybody that knows me is that, sometimes when I get pretty excited, I get a little jacked up. But after the games, I have a tendency just to kind of really relax. Is
it important for you to watch the video of the game, of the games that you whistle, or just when there's something?
It is. It's important to me to watch some of my games, and it's important to me to watch other games, particularly if I'm going into another game and I don't know the teams real well. I do like to prepare watching video of maybe you referee the game that day, and I'm going to have that same team the next day. I will watch your game to make sure I'm ready for them. Particularly if there was issues, I try to figure out, okay, what did Roy and his crew do that went well, and I want to do that. And if something didn't go well, how am I going to solve that problem in my match? Because remember, each of us wants to improve as we go through. You're going to learn some things, and you can help me. So I think that's a really important thing.
Do you have any goals that you didn't reach yet?
I saw that in the notes here from
we're practically into the last question, so I wanted to put it in.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Besides Tom Blue's cat that you saw there, I don't know if it's that one, but it's named Misty May, which is awesome. Tom rescues cats. For those of you guys that know Tom Blue, he's our big mentor coach here in the U.S. and he's a cat rescue, and he names his cats after famous players. But That's a really interesting question. Okay. And it's such a big question, for gosh sakes. I mean, there's so many things, but from an officiating standpoint, because I have personal things, of course, with family and children and even other things. But
in the volleyball world.
Yes, no, in the volleyball world too. I have things. I've got some schemes working after I retire that I've got on my mind. But I think my biggest goal is to change. My biggest goal is to work on our culture, is to try help facilitate a new culture in officiating. This culture of anxiety and stress and this, of players, of referees, of everything, and the parent and the fan behavior, particularly at the youth level. I am on a mission to expand our youth officiating group. We have a shortage of coaches that are women. We have a shortage of referees of all kinds. We have a shortage of referees in the U.S. of 16 to 30-year-olds. There aren't any in the U.S. and there aren't any across the world, and there aren't any in other sports. And that is wrong, because it is a great profession. So I think one of the goals I'm aiming for, and a goal that I've set for myself as director of officials of the U.S. and getting on this board of the best refereeing minds in our country, all sports, is to build a network in that group and within USA Volleyball that shows more compassion, empathy, and support of our young kids to be in a profession that really is fun. It's a family, and it's great. It's a great thing for them to do. And right now, kids don't look at it that way. And I think our only goal is to work with the clubs, work with the coaches, particularly the coaches and the directors of these clubs, to say, when you do these things and behave this way, and when your parents do these things and behave this way, you are hurting your own children. Because this is a profession where these kids can make good money, better than working at McDonald's, better than working at Starbucks, better than working at a little store. These kids can make more money reffing than they can at these other jobs, and yet you're denying them that by the treatment you're giving these referees. So I think that's a goal that I'm reaching for at this point in this new phase, I would say.
Okay. Anything you want to add now before I open the stage for any Q's and A's from our viewers who are still up?
No, Roy, I think you're the best. Roy, I just, I know we're going to have a closing comment, but I'm going to make my my kind of two cents I want to say here. Roy, you're really a brave man. I mean, this is bravery to get. I mean, you've got Mushtaq here. I just saw Mushtaq. I haven't kind of gone through the group of people that are here, but you've got some major players that are on this call and have been on other calls, right? Because I've listened in. I don't always get to go live with you, but because it's right during work. And my boss just called, by the way. So, and he doesn't know I'm on this call, so I'm a little not tense, but I'm a little thinking. But you're a brave man, and the effort and time that you're putting into this, giving us the links for these recordings, which is huge for someone like me, so I can watch the recordings, is a phenomenal. And I know you've been told this, but you really should know that you're a great service to all of us here. So I appreciate that. And then the final thing I want to say is that, there are incredible people here on this call, both young and new, that are taking the time out of a busy schedule, mothers and fathers that are here. And that's incredible commitment showing to you. And then we have a lot of mentor coaches that are here. I see Herbai, I see Mushtaq, I see Tom and Zaritza, and a lot of just really amazing leaders in the game they're here supporting you, this, and the other people that are here. So I'm really happy for you. This has gone so well, and I'm happy for all of us to be able to take advantage of all the stuff that you're doing. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you for your very kind words. Let's open the stage for any questions from the crowd here that anybody wants to ask something. Please feel free. You can unmute yourself.
And you can ask anything, by the way. I'll tell you, as anybody knows, I'll tell you true stories of ridiculously horrible things that have happened to me while working. And I'm not afraid to talk about them. I think it's important that you guys know that when you look up on a stand, you think, oh my God, that Patty's together, that Susie's together. But I'm telling you, that is not the case at times. At times, things can go very challenging for us. And I want you to know that, I want you to feel comfortable asking those questions.
You know what? I'm going to ask you a question. What's your most horrific volleyball match that you remember you would delete from your memory or from your...
I will tell you it. I will tell you it. I talked about it just a couple days ago, and it was one of the most horrific moments of my life. And it really was. And it's important because it can happen to anybody. But my son and his wife were pregnant. She was around 7 to 8 months pregnant. We weren't certain of the date, but you know, I'm gone a lot, and I had made every intention that when this baby was coming due, that I would be there for my son. Mm-hmm. Because having a baby is a scary thing. And she's a little person. She's not very big, and she had a big belly, and so you know, and at 7.5 months, she had a big belly. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be there. But then, of course, off I flew to Japan for a 3-week event in Japan. Well, I get a text from my husband telling me she's gone into labor. We don't know anything. And you guys, it's my first grandchild. So to be honest with you, I thought, being a grandmother, you know, I'm excited about it, but I can't be a grandma. I'm too young. But then when she was pregnant, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my son's having a baby. This is gonna be so exciting. But I will tell you this, this is when it became real. When I got that text that said they're going into labor, and I was in Japan and not at home where I should have been. And I really am 100% telling you, I should have been home. Family is first. So particularly when it's a very dangerous and challenging situation, because we didn't know what was going on, and she had some challenges through her pregnancy. And by the way, I was reffing that day a game with Susanna, thank God, Rodriguez. And so I get this text, no news. And so she's in the hospital the first day, no news. Then she's going into labor, but the baby's not coming, and the baby's under duress. And I'm getting texts, baby's in trouble. They're going to do a C-section. So then I'm getting, you're talking about anxiety and stress. That's what is, you know, no bad call is like that. So I am literally getting prepared for the game, and she's going into a thing, and I'm thinking, oh my God, if anything bad happens, I'm not there. I am the worst, truly the worst grandmother in the planet. I lost my mind. And that's when I realized, when you have kids or grandchildren, when you have grandchildren, guys, something happens to your brain that's even worse than when you're a parent. When you're a parent and you have children, you turn into like so protective and so incredibly like you do anything for your child. When you turn to a grandparent, you guys, it's worse. I became a crazy person. I could not practice mindful meditation. I was trying to do the Buddha and just like breathing, didn't work. I didn't want to tell my boss because I didn't want them to think that I wasn't tough enough to handle it, because that's how I've been raised. My father raised me, you got to be tough. You don't be a baby. So unfortunately, that old record was playing from the old days, and I don't like that record. I think it's bad parenting, but my dad was a tough old Catholic guy. And so if we didn't like have a stiff upper lip all the time, we get our butts spanked. So I'm sitting there going, I'm not going to tell my boss, I'm not going to be taken off this game. I can do it. Well, it didn't go well. And the match, by the way, went well only because I was smart enough to tell Susanna, and knew Susanna wouldn't tell anybody else, and she'd keep my secret that this horrible thing was happening. So I go, Susanna, I'm really having a hard time. If I look like I'm zoning out during the game, you got to help me. And we had challenge review, thank God. And I go, I am not joking. If something bad happens, you got to tell me what to do. But I think I'll be okay. Well, when the match started, I was okay 99% of the time. But as you know, you got to be 100% as a referee. And there was a 1% time, I specifically remember it. A girl on my right hit a ball sharp angle, and it landed on the other side to my left, out of bounds, on the line, really close. And I saw it hit the floor, but my mind just went blank. And all I saw was a baby and my son and me not being there, and I didn't see the ball. And I looked at the line judge, and he made a signal, but it wouldn't even register. Like, I couldn't even register the call. And I looked over at Susanna, and she's staring at me, and then she goes out, and she makes a big signal like this. And I just went, you know, pointed out, and I went, praise God for Susanna, right? It was the worst game of my whole life. I'm telling you, I was a crazy grandma. And I realized that, and that's never happened to me, by the way, that never happened in my career. I've always been able to kind of keep it together, even when I'm having a little bit of a rough time. But that was a moment where I was completely gone. And, you know, it happens to everyone. And it does happen it happens to every single person, the best players, the best refs. And so I think it's just something you got to work through. I got on this, by the way, the baby was born, the baby was fine, was super tiny. Everybody was doing well. And then the next day I had off, and then I ref the next day and I was back to normal. But, you know, it happens, right? It happens.
Yeah, we have a lot of experiences and a lot of memories from every matches or any kind of matches and any kind of extraordinary situations that we had in all those careers. Anybody with the questions? Somebody is still awake?
Roy, yeah, I'll just toss something in here. Patty, thank you so much for all the kind words. It doesn't work. I'm not going to come back and referee. But Roy,
but we got you last year. You came and coached last year, remember? Tom, we recruited Tom to coach our young kids at that high performance event, and he was great.
Roy, I really wanted to see this session, and I could congratulate you. It's not anybody who can get Patty to talk. Seriously, I do love Patty's passion and her enthusiasm about the sport. It was something that we did see early from '96 and on, and she has become a great international referee and now a great coach and mentor, and will be for the future. But congratulations. I thought this was a good session, and I think Patty told us some good points. It was great.
Yeah, it was a very, very interesting and very informative. Michal, you wanted to say something? Is she still on? Oh, okay. So if there are any more no more questions, we will finish this session here now.
Roy, if you allow me.
Please, Muhammad.
Mushtaq, hi.
I just like Tom, and I got so happy to see Tom also. Wasn't going to miss this for the world. Hi, Tom. It's a pleasure seeing you guys. But Roy, I mean, I'd like to add some of the compliments that Pati has enunciated, that you are doing a really, really great job. A great job in keeping the referees informed, together, updated, sharing experiences that we don't really hear daily from when we are at different competitions. But I have had great experiences working with Pati over the years, more closely in Nausicaa events, in Pan American Games. I remember one of the first events that Pati didn't want to go home when she was in Brazil for the Pan American Games. And she was due to be there for the preliminary event.
I forgot that story.
Yeah, and she almost stayed on until the end because she kept changing her ticket and changing her ticket and changing her ticket. And the camaraderie from the guys because in these events you had, your meals were by chits. So you had chits for meals. So you just don't go and take a buffet and walk into, you have to present a chit. And everybody would have shared a chit or two with Pati just to make sure she stayed. And it's because the love we had for her. And that was such a new time for me when I worked with her, was earlier in our career. And I was doing beach volleyball at that event, and Pati was doing indoor. So we would have met more times for dinner and share moments together and breakfast. But yes, Roy, I think, Pati, you have been an icon in refereeing and trained by the best, one of the best, I must say, Tom. And it is really happy to hear your stories, the moments of how you handle things, and only things that we can all learn from each other. It is good to see that you can, at the highlight of your career, still be involved. And we hope that we will have an Olympic Games in 2021, and your nomination will still hold. I look forward to working with you again. Tom,
thank you.
Hi, and say best wishes to you and your family.
Thanks, Mushtaq. Yeah,
you.
I mean,
Thanks, Mushtaq. Good to see you too.
yeah, it's the Mushtaqs, the Toms of the world, and that really make it like a family. I mean, I don't say this lightly when I said Tom and Mushtaq are like a second father to me. Even though we're super close in age, it's like a big brother or a father to me. Particularly during, you know, the one thing I do remember, particularly, and Tom for sure. I've already spoken enough about Tom, but let's talk about Mushtaq. The one thing I particularly want to talk about with Mushtaq, though, because that's something that we can all take with us as we become, you know, like big sisters to somebody, or, you know, someone's coach or someone's mentor, is the fact that Mushtaq, no matter how we did, no matter how good or bad we are, he treated everybody the same. He was always, I still remember when we'd have dinners at these NORCECA events, and we'd all be sitting eating together. And the Olympic computer here, the two ladies in the picture, you guys remember this? Yeah. Yes. We'd be sitting in the thing, and Mushtaq would come in, and I still remember the avocados, and we'd make guacamole. Yeah, and Mushtaq would eat with us, and he'd be nice to everybody. He'd talk to everyone. He wouldn't talk to just his star players. He'd talk to all his players. You know, one thing about Mushtaq and the Toms of the world, and you know, they understand that every player matters. You know, not just your superstars like Susanna and Valdo, but every single player in that place mattered. And I think, you know, we felt valued as athletes and as players, as referees, everyone. And when we made mistakes, he'd talk about the error, and then it was over. We'd go eat dinner and we'd make guacamole. And it was so relaxing. It made you realize, okay, I'm all right, and I'm going to just keep getting better. And I've got support from my coaches and my teammates, and that we're just going to keep working. And I think, you know, if I've left anything here, it's the fact that the impact you can have on just building people's confidence. And it, you know, the key we all have to have, just like when you're teaching, like, you know, I've got three teachers are in this house living here. The key for them when they're working with students is to take wherever that student's at and take them to the next place up, right? So you may have a brilliant student and you take them here and you move them up. But as a referee, you know, if you've got these referees that are doing a good job, or maybe even they're struggling, then our job as teammates and as coaches and as mentors is to just take them up a notch. And if we take them up a notch, that's amazing for them. You've just changed their life. You've made them so much stronger. And if we did that for each person that we know, you know, we're going to make mistakes. And, you know, and let's say we get sanctioned. Let's say something bad happens where, you know, there's a consequence. Fine. You know, I mean, I still remember my sister getting grounded for a month. 1 month, she couldn't leave the house. My parents weren't about like grounding for a night. They ground you for your life. And she couldn't leave her room for a month. She got home from school. She had to go to her room. She didn't leave for a month, you guys. That's no joke. And I remember thinking when she came out of her room after that month, man, my dad was like, okay, we're done. Let's go on. No more, you know, you're good now. So I think, you know, we've got to realize that, you know, out of the best intentions, we can make mistakes. But come back, because it's okay. I mean, I'm telling you these stories of really mistakes I've made or errors I've had, because I want you to know that if you're not hearing it, Valdo makes mistakes. Susanna has made big mistakes. You just don't hear about them. First of all, when you're good, you're very good at covering them up, by the way. You know how to kind of go through it quickly so no one really notices it. But, you know, the key is we all make mistakes. So keep at it, because we need you reffing. You're important to every one of us. And there's folks hurt by, and there's just a lot of really great people here that are believe in what you're doing. And then find someone else that you can talk to when you're struggling. That's a really big deal. Find someone you can visit with when you're struggling, because that will be the person that keeps you going, whether it's your husband, your friend, me, somebody else. Find someone you can visit with to keep you going when you're feeling down, because you will. I mean, we're human beings. So,
Pati, I have to say that it was fascinating. The most fastest 2 hours that I've had in any session that I've had. You see, Mary Carmen is driving and listening to us.
I know, Mary Cameron, if you don't have a chance to watch the session with the five, it was Mary Cameron, myself, Angela Glass, Susanna Rodriguez, Juhi. We were on a session here a couple nights ago, and that was a lot of fun. Mary Cameron, let's talk about Mary Cameron, and this is no joke. Mary Cameron is a great ref, a great young ref. And our hope is that Mary Cameron doesn't get distracted by life and go do something else. So, you know, she's got family, she's got children, and people that are important to her. But, you know, again, out of Norseca, Mary Cameron is going to be one of our really solid female referees. And she's so nice and well loved within the Norseca community. And you know, these are the kind of people, men and women, that we gotta keep and that are amazing.
Sure. And drive safely, Mary.
And look at how devoted she is.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you all for joining
Bye,
us
guys.
for this mission. It was a really, really very